Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today we're going to be talking about our updated top 24 tight end rankings with tiers. And in this episode, we're including the rookies. In our last tight end rankings video, we did not, so you're in for a treat.
Hike!
All right, Joe, who do you got in tier number 5?
All right, in tier 5 at number 24, I've got Hunter Henry. At 23, I've got Noah Fant. At 22, I've got Chig Okonkwo. And at 21, I got Jatavian Sanders.
It's always interesting because I in the back of my head, I'm wondering, do you and I have the same players in the rankings? Wouldn't that be interesting? And it never happens. The first player you named. But number 24, I've got tight end Michael Mayer. 23, Jelani Woods. 22, Noah Fant.
Still got Jelani Woods in your top 24. Wow.
Yes, I do. I'm proud about it.
All
21, Chig Okonkwo, and number 20, Jatavian Sanders. So, Joe, we do have some similarities here. You and I both have Chig Okonkwo, Noah Fant, and Jatavian Sanders in this tier. However, I have Jelani Woods, and I have Michael Mayer, and you have Hunter Henry. So you were, not liking my pick for Jelani Woods. What do you not like about him?
I don't know. I just feel like there's more better tight ends out there. And probably could get utilized a little bit more, but you're trying to forecast. I appreciate that. We haven't really seen it out of him, but you believe in his ability to, and you're trying to forecast that. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he's utilized with Anthony Richardson. We've only gotten to see him play a few games last year. So, it'll be interesting how that works out, seeing they've added to their wide receiver room. I'm curious to see how heavily they utilize the tight end, but you obviously think the Colts are going to use him quite heavily.
Well, I think he's just been robbed his first two seasons. It's been very injury plagued. You've heard him recently just, coming out and saying that he feels right, and this is the best he's felt his entire career. And I think that he's such a huge target that if he stays healthy, I think he has a great opportunity ahead of him. I don't think that tight end room, it's a bunch of, different guys, right? You've got Ogletree, you've got Granson. You've got a bunch of, rando guys that are in that bunch. I just think someone's got to emerge. They got the veteran Moelle Cox still, I believe. So, but I think Jelani Woods has the real potential, and that's why I have him forecasted here.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's just as tall and big as Moelle Cox. Obviously, he ran pretty fast, which was a lot of the intrigue for this athleticism. But like you said, it's just such a tough and deep tight end room there to think that Jelani Woods is going to emerge enough to be top 24. I guess we'll have to wait and see here.
One guy I'm really excited about, and I want to talk a little bit about him here, is tight end Jatavian Sanders. I know he was, I think he slid farther than you and I both thought he would. I thought that he was going to be maybe a second or third round pick, ended up being a fourth round pick for the Panthers. But honestly, Joe, he couldn't have went to a better place. Panthers, from a tight end standpoint, that tight end room was barren. They've got nobody there. They've had Tommy Tremble for the past, and there's always been a thing, well, could Tommy Tremble emerge? He's such a great blocker, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he's not going to emerge. We need somebody better in that tight end room. So Jatavian Sanders, he's not the best blocker. He's a great receiving tight end. We're talking about fantasy here. You got Tommy Tremble who's able to block. Now you got Sanders, who's going to be more of a receiving entity for them. I think this could be a great security blanket for a young quarterback and Bryce Young. I like this fit. And if you think about it, too, when it comes to tight ends versus other positions, a lot of these guys who end up breaking out end up being the stars of the position. They weren't first-round picks. A lot of these first-round pick tight ends have kind of been flops. So I'm not that scared from the draft capital standpoint for Sanders.
Yeah, me neither. Like you said, they've wanted Ian Thomas to kind of be the guy there. You mentioned Tommy Tremble as well. They just haven't been able to hit on the tight end position really since Greg Olsen left. Honestly, I feel like it's been a bare room there and underutilized. But like you said, I always like to say tight end position is young quarterback's best friend and their quote unquote security blanket. And I definitely think Sanders has the potential to be that for Bryce Young.
And honestly, when it comes to Bryce Young, This is a little bit of a tangent, but they are providing a variety of weapons that he never truly had last year. With a receiving tight end like Jatavion Sanders that he can go right up the seam, a running back like Jonathan Brooks who can, be this receiving entity that really causes a lot of problems. I mean, he just has different weapons that he just wasn't at his disposal last season, his rookie year.
Yeah, definitely. They've definitely, they upgraded the offensive line for him and potential, the receiver room, obviously upgrade with the tight end room with Sanders. So it will be definitely interesting to see how Bryce Young does, especially with Canales coming over.
All right, let's head over to tier 4. Who do you got there? Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our channel by following us on Apple and Spotify under the Salary Cap Show, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Front Office Pros. If you want advice on your trades, head over to the Front Office Pros Twitter and fill out our Front Office Pros Dynasty Trade Inquiry Form, which gives us all the information we need to help advise you on what is the best move for your team.
All right, in tier 4, at number 20, I've got Isaiah Likely. At 19, I've got Michael Mayer. 18, Luke Musgrave. 17, Cole Kmet. And 16, Pat Friermuth.
Oh, boy. All right. So at 19, I've got Isaiah Likely. 18, Luke Musgrave. 17, Ben Sinnott. 16, Cole Kmet. And 15, Dalton Schultz. So once again, we do have some similar selections here in this tier. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I was going to ask you about Michael Mayer in the last tier, because sometimes I ask, do you have these guys in anywhere in your tiers? And he was a guy that's like, he's kind of on the bubble. Probably not, but you defied the odds and you shocked me. You have him in tier 4 at number 19. What makes you interested in Michael Mayer? I think some are spooked, with the fact that Brock Bowers, who we're going to be talking about later, got drafted by the Raiders and question what Mayer's role is going to be.
Yeah, I definitely think it's fair to question, but I was going to put him lower, but then I just kept thinking, like, the Raiders just don't really have that many weapons on offense. And this was a guy they drafted last year with high hopes to come in as a rookie and really, produce as a rookie tight end. Obviously, we only know a few rookie tight ends actually produce their rookie year. So he's heading into his second year of this offense. I know would like better quarterback play, but, Devontae Adams, they've got, and then who's their other receiver there?
Jacoby Myers.
But outside of that, and then obviously
Michael Gallup.
Yeah, okay, Michael Gallup, but they draft Brock Bowers. They don't really have, I feel like they're lacking like a slot receiver, which I think Brock Bowers could fill in there. I know Mayer is going to be involved a lot in the blocking, but I still think there's a role for him in the offense, being that they don't have too many weapons, especially in the outside. They're going to have to throw it to somebody. And, why not utilizing Michael Mayer? And I think they could use Brock Bowers and other roles outside of just using him as another tight end.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You've heard Mayer recently come out and say that he's more jazzed up now than he was at all last year. I didn't realize how much I mean, I guess we knew that there was turmoil with Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels, the head coach, but I just wasn't anticipating him coming out right in the media and basically saying that he was basically his love for football had kind of been dashed, and now he's all in. So if he's got the motivation, that's certainly going to help him. There's no question about that. I honestly almost didn't put him in my top 24, but when it came to, like, I was debating between him and honestly like a guy like Greg Dulcich, but my thought was, it's like, okay, we're looking at potential here. This guy's a former first round pick who people had a lot of excitement for. Even if he doesn't pan out with the Raiders, he should get another crack at it. So I felt like he was deserving to be in the top 24.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Raiders are going to find a way to utilize this guy. Being especially like you said, the draft capital is there. I don't think they're just going to fade him out because they have a new toy in Brock Bowers, and we'll see if Michael Gallup can actually stay on the field. Otherwise, they're really going to be needing, receiving options in this offense. You mentioned Greg Dulcich. I fiddled with him as well. He was in my top 24 for a second, and I decided to scrap him just because he's still dealing with another injury. I don't think he's going to actually stay healthy. And honestly, the new guy that the Broncos seem to be hyping up is Lucas Kroll, and we'll see what happens.
So another guy I'd be interested to get your thoughts on, Luke Musgrave. Both of us had him ranked at 18. Do you think it's possible that we're rating him too high based on the emergence of what Tucker Kraft did? I mean, they both were drafted in the same class. Musgrave hasn't been able to stay healthy. Proved he wasn't able to stay healthy. Do we got the wrong Packer tight end here?
I don't think so. I think Musgrave's got the better upside. If the thing of it is if he can stay healthy, I think he'll be the true number one tight end on the team. And I was looking at Tucker Kraft's production, like he had like 30 receptions, right around 400 yards or so, and a couple of touchdowns. Like it wasn't the best. Like, 'cause I considered putting both of them in my top 24, and I just couldn't justify it. And then one other thing I was thinking about is, like, they've got so many young wide receivers that I don't feel like they can have two relevant tight ends. So I'm putting my faith in Musgrave actually being able to stay healthy and stay in the field. And I think, as long as he's able to do that, he is, the number one tight end for this team.
One other guy I was really surprised that you had in this tier was Pat Friermuth. He's a guy that I feel like you have been a fan of for quite some time. So what do you think? I mean, you're saying that, Pat Friermuth's come out recently and said that the Arthur Smith offensive system is really, it caters to tight ends, and he's really enjoying the offensive game plan that they're implementing in Pittsburgh. What made you put him in this tier?
Because I don't trust Russell Wilson to throw the ball in the middle of the field. It's just something that he never has done. He didn't do it with the Broncos. He doesn't really do it with Seattle.
What if it's Justin Fields, though?
Well, I don't think it's going to be Justin Fields. I mean, that'd be a different story. If it's Justin Fields, I'd love it because we saw what he did with Cole Kmet. If I knew Justin Fields was going to be the starter, Pat Friermuth would be higher. This is not a justification on Pat Friermuth. I like him as a talent.
That's why I'm shocked that you had me, but it does make sense. I mean, you watch Russell Wilson more than most people. So
he like literally doesn't throw over the middle of the field, and that was one of the things that drove Sean Payton nuts. Is just how little this guy utilizes the middle of the field, unless the Friermuth is going to be running some out routes and going to the outside on play actions or something. I think it could be another tough year for him.
All right, Joe. So who do you got in tier number 3?
All right. In tier 3 at 15, I've got Ben Sinnott, 14, Dalton Schultz, 13, Dallas Goedert, 12, Jake Ferguson, 11, David Njoku, and at 10, Brock Bowers.
Oh, wow. Okay. So at number 14, I've got Dallas Goedert, 13, Pat Friermuth, 12, Jake Ferguson, 11, Evan Engram, and 10, David Njoku. A hefty tier 3 for Joe, with 6 guys in this tier. But you've got some explaining to do, Joe. You got tight end Brock Bowers at number 10. You feel like he's not even a tier 2 or even possibly a tier 1 player for some. What makes you have him here?
Well, one, I hated his landing spot and not sure I really trust the Raiders to use him correctly. So that had a lot to do with the 10. I mean, I honestly thought about even having him lower, but he's in my top 10. Obviously like him as a talent, but yeah, I would have loved to see him go to a team with a more creative offensive coordinator, somebody who might actually be able to move this guy around and use him to his full potential. I'm just not sure that the Raiders are actually going to be able to do that.
I mean, you're not wrong. I don't necessarily like the landing spot either, but I think I've come a long way from my Garrett Wilson fiasco, where I dug too much into the landing spot. I think Brock Bowers, from all intents and purposes, from what I understand, and mind you, I'm no scout, right? I mean, right? But I try to do my best to try to absorb different takes, look at the production. You look at all different factors when evaluating a player, and this guy is probably the best tight end since Kyle Pitts, in my view. I mean, this guy is a blue chip player. Why he slid? His size is.
Well,
he's not a typical size of a
lackluster offense.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, you probably don't even have Pitts in your top 24 if I had to guess. But
no, he is.
That's okay. All right. Well,
he's
at least
quarterback in town, Steve.
Okay, well, at least you've got some justification to his name. But anyways, I like Bowers. I think he's going to do really well. I think he could become the guy there, or the second guy, because they need somebody else besides Devontae Adams to step up.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. This is another one. Like, I like Brock Bowers as a talent as well. Although I do think injury concerns for him, or he was had battled some injuries his last couple of years in college. I do think that is a concern heading into the NFL here, just to see how he handles that. But hopefully, going through some offseason programs, he is able to bulk up a little bit to actually be able to play in the NFL. And like I said, I like Brock Bowers as a talent. Just we, like you said, I mean, Kyle Pitts, we just seen without, good quarterback play and good offense, like these guys, even though they're talented and blue chip players, they just don't perform. And you're thinking about Garrett Wilson, he's been one of the most targeted players over the last 2 seasons, but he's still been disappointing for fantasy. And that's with terrible quarterback play even, but he's still been disappointing for fantasy despite his high level and target share.
Let's talk about another guy that you are really high on. You were hoping your Denver Broncos would draft him. That's rookie Ben Sinnott. How do you say it?
I don't know. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is. Maybe he'll come out and tell us like Devon Achane did, but I probably have honestly pronounced it both ways.
Yeah. Well, anyways, you are a big fan of his, and I do think he's a guy who's flying under the radar. Why do you think that is?
Well, I just don't think he's a household name and a guy that's heavily talked about. I mean, he played college at Kansas State. Not sure how, they're not really heavily in, public knowledge is in terms of, college football and one of the big teams or anything. So I think that has a lot to do with it, but just watching him play and the fact that the Commanders, released Logan Thomas, I think he's going to potentially step right in there and have a decent role in this offense with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Like we keep saying, these young quarterbacks using tight ends as their security blankets, and he's such a good run blocker as well. And he's a guy that's going to be able to stay on the field for all 3 downs.
Well, and you saw Jaden Daniels utilize the tight end quite a bit in that LSU offense as well, which is good to see, right? You've already seen him look that way. But, I mean, he only has to be competing with Zach Ertz, but Ertz is getting up there in age. I think he might be there for leadership. He might still do okay, but I think by the end of this year, we'll see Sinnott take the lead.
Yeah, kind of like Zach Ertz when he was around when Trey McBride was there. I think it's honestly good for.
You mean Dallas Goedert?
No, Trey McBride in Arizona
was never. Oh,
was Zach
yeah.
Ertz.
My bad. Okay, I hear you saying. My bad.
Yeah, but as far as Ben is coming in there with Washington and gets to learn behind a guy like a wily veteran like Zach Ertz, I think it's gonna only help him. And like you said, might be a slow start for him, but I think by the end of the year, we'll really see him start to come into his own.
Well, it benefited Goddard back in the day. It ended up benefiting McBride on the way as well. So,
right.
Maybe Ertz. I mean, we don't know. You and I don't know Zach Ertz personally. Maybe he's a really good teacher. Maybe he really helps the tight end room and helps develop the guys around him.
I know it certainly can't hurt. That's for sure.
No, that's for sure. All right, Joe. So who do you got in tier number 2?
All right, in tier 2, number 9, I've got Evan Engram. At 8, I've got George Kittle. 7, Travis Kelce. 6, Mark Andrews. And at 5, TJ Hockenson.
All right. At number 9, I've got George Kittle. 8, Brock Bowers. 7, Mark Andrews. 6, Travis Kelce. And 5, TJ Hockenson. So once again, Joe, similar players within this tier. Just you and I have a couple switched around here. One guy I do want to get your thoughts on here is Evan Engram. Obviously, he had a fantastic year this past year. I felt like he didn't deserve to be in this tier 2. I felt like these other guys like Andrews, like Hockenson, like Kelce, I think they're just a step ahead of Engram. You feel otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably fair, but I do like I like his potential in this offense. Obviously no more Calvin Ridley, and he had so many targets last year. I think that he can continue to grow with this Jaguars offense and has potential to be right there with some of these guys.
Lawrence has definitely developed a rapport with him. There's no question about that. And the fact of the matter is, with Ridley gone, yes, they drafted Brian Thomas. They're going to take some time to gel. They brought in a guy like Gabe Davis. He could do well, but he might take time to gel. Zay Jones is no longer there. So it's a kind of a different looking Jaguars offense, but the two mainstays are Kirk and Engram, and I would suspect that those two will continue to perform. Maybe those other guys will be late bloomers, but I don't see them performing out of the gate.
Honestly, the fact that Zay Jones isn't there, Calvin Ridley, that's what gave me the confidence to move him up here. Otherwise, you're probably right. I probably would have had him in the third tier. But I think with even increased production from what we've seen out of him, and possibly more involvement, I think he could be right there this year.
Well, then that's fair. I mean, the reality is that he performed really, really well, and he has. I mean, he was a bust in New York. I mean, people
Right.
thought that he was not going to pan out. So I think that we've really seen him excel in Jacksonville.
Hey, just like we were talking about, you know what I mean? Like Giants drafted this guy high, didn't work out. It goes for a change of scenery. Now he's producing. We'll wait and see if that ends up happening with a guy like Michael Mayer, who we mentioned previously.
Well, even signed a prove-it deal. I think he signed a prove-it deal with Jacksonville, and then it was tagged on top of it, and then I was able to secure a long-term deal, so good for him. But he had to work for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, this is interesting. I don't know who we want to talk about here because there's a bunch that's very interesting. You and I both, you had Kelce at 7. I had Kelce at 6. He just had this contract extension. He's been the proverbial number one tight end. I think last year, I think you mocked me for not having Kelce number 1. Now you've dropped him all the way down to 7. So he even got a contract extension with the Chiefs. Do you feel like you and I have him too low? Are we too concerned about his age? Do you think last year he truly took a step back? What are your thoughts on Kelce?
Well, it's funny that you say that because I thought he took a step back, and then I looked at his stats, and like he still had over 100 targets. He was just shy of 1,000 yards. Now his touchdowns weren't as much as the previous year, but I believe he's still at 6. So it's interesting. Like he was so tough for me, but I just feel like with his age, I almost feel like they want to use him less in the regular season and really save him for the playoffs. That's kind of my theory and why I put him this low. But who knows? I mean, I think when push comes to shove, like if they need a big play, he's still the guy that they're going to go to.
Yeah, my reasoning to have him at 6 instead of 7 and putting him ahead of Mark Andrews is because we've been seeing Mark Andrews dealing with a little more injury concerns, somewhat of the slight emergence of Isaiah Likely. And so and possibly that identity of that offense changing with Derrick Henry, at least in the short term, coming on. Are they just going to go back to the old Raven days of Jamal Lewis, and just ground and pound, right? So it's like, I don't know. To me, I have my concerns here. So I can understand why you have Andrews ahead of him. I just feel that Kelce has just been that proven commodity.
Yeah, honestly, it was a toss up between 6 and 7 for me between those two guys. I just went, Andrews, he's younger and he's so involved in that Ravens offense. But like you said, I did think about the injuries. I didn't completely ignore those. It's just one of those things. Like if he is able to stay healthy and not deal with those injuries that he has been able to, I think, he would perform higher than Kelce. And that's kind of why I put him ahead.
Now, one other question I'm going to direct to both of us here. You and I both had TJ Hockenson at 5. I think in the previous tight end video, I think we got some commentary as that this guy should deserving to be in tier 1. He's 26 years old. He plays for the Vikings. Has had some really good seasons. Obviously, a new quarterback going to be the starter, whether it's Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy going forward. But do you feel that we're wrong to have him in this tier 2? Are we getting too focused on the recent ACL injury? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, actually, in the other video, I had him in my tier 1. I had 5 guys.
I thought so.
Decided to not have him in there this time, partially just because of the kind of the quarterback change there. And like you said, I mean, it's not so much that he's coming off the injury. I just, whether it's Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy, just curious if he's going to still have that same, utilization, or will they, find other guys in this offense. And then it's like JJ McCarthy's a rookie We don't know if he's going to be able to come in and support multiple receivers like, the veteran Kirk Cousins who spreads the ball around. And we had confidence that he could support, 3 or more receivers in the offense. And Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy just unproven at the NFL level. So that's really what gave me pause and why I put him down a tier.
Well, not to mention, I mean, as you know, McCarthy wasn't really relied upon to throw a ton of times. I mean, it's a different offense than what we've seen with Kirk Cousins in the past. I do think it's interesting, though, because one of his favorite targets was Loveland. So it makes you wonder, the tight end from Michigan. Makes you wonder if that might be a
Michigan
similar
didn't
thing.
have a Justin Jefferson on the outside, though. That's part of it.
That's true. That's true. All right, so let's head over to our final tier, tier number 1. Who do you got there?
All right, in tier 1, Steve, you're going to be proud of me. At number 4, I've got Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Number 3, I've got Dalton Kincaid. At number 2, I've got Trey McBride. And at number 1, I've got Sam LaPorta.
All right, at number 4, I've got Trey McBride. Number 3, Kyle Pitts. Number 2, Dalton Kincaid. And number 1, Sam LaPorta. It's nice to see that we finally are in a place where you can stop with this Kyle Pitts hate now that he's finally in your tier 1. But now you finally have seen the light. I think that's partially because now Kirk Cousins is the quarterback.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if Kirk Cousins wasn't the quarterback, he wouldn't be this high. And honestly, it still was tough for me to do that, even with him there, just because we haven't seen it. But it's just tough because, like, the 1 year, his rookie year, he had Matt Ryan at quarterback, and he was all world and, set the rookie tight end record, with Matt Ryan. But he hasn't had a quarterback since Matt Ryan, and he's obviously struggled. So I am, of the belief that with Kirk Cousins, he's got a chance to be one of the top guys, kind of like what we saw with TJ Hockenson. Hockenson wasn't really getting utilized in Detroit. All of a sudden, he comes to Minnesota. He starts getting more heavily involved in the Minnesota offense. Kirk Cousins targets him a lot. Curious to see if we see something similar with Kyle Pitts. Not to mention, we've got another Los Angeles Ram disciple at offensive coordinator for the Falcons, just like Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely. I'll say this, and maybe I shouldn't, but I will. This could be a make or break year for Kyle Pitts. I've been pounding the table for him, his potential. I believe the Falcons accepted his 5th-year option, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be with the team for a while. But, people from a fantasy perspective have been pounding the table with this guy. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. And I've been with him, and I got burned bad. I think it was 2 years ago I got burned. I said, I'm not going to do that again. This time, now that Kirk Cousins is the quarterback, we've seen what he's been able to do in the past. So you would think it would translate. And honestly, from a dynasty perspective, I'm a big Michael Penix guy. You're not as much. So I even like the future of possibly Penix. Once Kirk Cousins is no longer there, they have an heir apparent right from there. So I don't know. To me, I think Pitts is very interesting. But I will say that I think it could be a make or break. I mean, he's so young. That's why I kind of hesitate to say it, because he's still so young, even though he's been in the NFL for 3 seasons. But to me, it is kind of a make or break season for the guy.
Yeah, I think it is, just because of the hype that was around him. And it's like he flashes a rookie, but then he's just yet to return to that. I know he's been battling with some injuries, but that's also a concern. Young guy like this has already, battled some injuries such early in his career. But I mean, if he can't do it with Kirk Cousins, then it's like, who is he going to be productive with?
Now, one guy I would sort of disagree with you on. I mean, it's interesting because honestly, throughout this whole video, I probably have all the rankings that we've ever done. This is probably the most similar, I feel like, as far as tiers go. We just had a couple of different guys here and there.
I think that's just the tight end landscape.
It could be, yeah.
It's just there's the cream rises to the top, and then it's just like then there's like everybody else.
I disagree with you, obviously, with Kincaid. I've got Kincaid at 2. You've got him at 3. I honestly, which probably don't surprise you, I consider putting him 1. Because I think he's going to be the guy in Buffalo. Now that Stephon Diggs is no longer there, Gabe Davis is no longer there, there's a ton of vacated targets. They drafted this guy with Travis Kelce in mind, that they see him every year in the Chiefs. They want to have a dynamic receiving, entity at the tight end position. So I know what LaPorta did last year was phenomenal. My question is, do we know for sure, is he going to repeat it again next year? I'm saying he could be good, but I also could see him regress a little bit. I think he could be in for a disappointment. I think Kincaid could have more usage. We could see an ascend. I could see a little bit of a kind of settling a little bit with LaPorta because they've got a lot of weapons over in Detroit. You're going to see probably more of an emergence of Jahmyr Gibbs. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to get his work. Jamison Williams, you were really excited about him. There's a lot of some excitement on that offense. So I mean I felt like I had to put LaPorta one. I mean how could you not? Being that he's he was just a rookie and he did what he did, broke records as a tight end. So I feel like he's there, but it's close in my mind.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you're right. I mean, the bar is set really high for LaPorta now. It will be kind of tough for him to repeat that, but he's just, he's very good. He's got, I think he's got a clear-cut role in that offense. But you mentioned like all the weapons that the Lions have, like they only have those two receivers and not much after that. So LaPorta's still going to be heavily relied upon, where I just, it's just tough. I honestly looked at Kincaid's numbers and I
They
feel
were
like,
not good, but I would look at the stretch
yeah.
when Dawson Knox was not there, though, and that changes things.
Okay, but Dawson Knox is there. So that's the tough part. Like, I don't know. I feel like he can't take that out. And I get that.
That's fair.
He's like one of the mainstays, and there's not many weapons in Buffalo. But I honestly just think the passing volume in Buffalo is just going to go down. So we'll see if that equals a lot more utilization for Kincaid or not.
I can see that happening, but also let's not forget, last year you were pounding the table. You thought LaPorta was the best tight end in the draft. I thought Kincaid was the best tight end, but we're bringing that into the conversation. You have a bias for LaPorta. I have a bias for Kincaid. Now, you could say yours is more justifiable because LaPorta did what he did, but you and I both have our crushes, if you will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you no doubt like Kincaid. I mean, I think I've got a fair at number 3 because, I mean, I think I like Trey McBride situation a lot too. With that Arizona Cardinal offense and
yeah, you must really like the Arizona Cardinal offense coming in. You were huge on Marvin Harrison Jr. Now you're big on you got Trey McBride as the number 2 tight end. You must be liking what's going on over in Arizona.
I don't know if I have to like what's going on, but I just like certain pieces of that offense, and I think these guys can do well. I mean, obviously, Trey McBride had a big year last year. And a lot had to do with that with Kyler Murray coming back, and they seem to have a rapport.
They really did.
I think with a full season, there's no telling how successful McBride can be in this offense.
Do you wonder, though, with a true alpha like a Marvin Harrison, like he kind of had with like a DeAndre Hopkins, does the role kind of change for McBride?
Could,
or at least the volume, anyways, could it be depreciated?
The volume could. Because I do like. I mean, I got Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 5 in my receiver rankings. Obviously, I think highly of him, and I think Kyler Murray's going to use him heavily, and I'm expecting him to kind of get that DeAndre Hopkins treatment that we did see while he was there in Arizona. But I still think, that there's a role. They don't have too many other high-level target guys that are like going to be demanding targets from Kyler, like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Trey McBride will.
So that does it for our updated top 24 tight end rankings with tiers, including the rookies. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and check our previous episodes. We went through quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. And coming up, we're really looking forward to heading over to the defensive side of the ball. If you haven't tried IDP, it's a great way to be introduced to our rankings, which can be a little more fun than offense because it's not as chalk. So Joe and I are kind of a little bit different, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like tight ends were kind of chalky, but other positions I even think were different. But yeah, defense, there's a lot of different ways you can take that.
Everything's on the table, so you're not going to want to miss that. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time.